is going to be about how to sort an array. So for this sort, imagine our array is something like this: 5, 1, 3, 2, 4. I've got a variable called myArray, and in its first element I've got a 5, then a 1, then a 3, then a 2, then a 4. So how am I going to sort these? Well, what I want to do is I want to take the largest element and put it in the back. And so I'm going to do a loop, and I'm going to compare the first with the second and put the biggest one in the back, and then the second with the third, put the biggest one in the back, the third with the fourth, biggest one in the back, fourth with the fifth, the biggest one in the back. So a loop would be a good way to do that. And so I would create a variable called position, and it would start in the first element, which might be a 1, or it actually might be a 0, depending on how the array is created. Because remember, with arrays, we can use array with the index of 0, and this array then would be 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. But to keep it simple, I used a 1 and said, let's go from 1 to the last position. So we'll say this is spot 1, spot 2, spot 3, spot 4, and spot 5. Okay, and so what we're going to do is we're going to compare the array at the position with the array at the position after it. Or in other words, the array at position plus 1. So in this case, what I'm going to do, I'm going to compare the 5 with the 1, and which is bigger? The 5 is bigger. So I'm going to move the 5 and the 1. So I want to swap the two of them, and I would put the 1 and the 5. Then I would say next, and the next statement, position would be 1 bigger. And so now I would be comparing the second spot. And in the second spot, you're going to see I've got a 5 and a 3 that I'm going to compare. Which is bigger, the 5 or the 3? And the 5, of course, is bigger than the 3, so I'd swap the 2. And then I'll go next. When I go next, I'm now going to compare 5 with the 2, which is bigger. The 5 is bigger. So I'll swap, and 5 and 2 will be bigger. Then I'm going to go to the next position, 5 and 4, which is bigger. 5, of course, is bigger, and we now have done a sort of the largest element now is in the back. So my array would now be 1, 3, 2, 4, 5. So that's fine, but that only does one sweep, and it only put the largest at the very end. So what I need to do next is I need to put a loop inside of a loop. And I want to say that the last position I'm going to check is going to be the 4th position. And the reason it's the 4th position is because we always check the position with the one above it. And I want to then do the 3rd position as the last, the 2nd position as last, and then we're done. So let's take a look at how this would work. So I'd add a statement here for last position is going to equal 4 to the first position, step -1. So I'd count backwards. And then my inner loop here would be the position is going to be from 1 to the last position. So what I would do now, I'd compare 1 and 3, and which is bigger? 3, so I don't do anything. I don't have to swap. I then would compare 3 and 2, which is bigger? 3 is bigger, so I'd swap. So the swap would happen here. And then what I would do is compare the 3 and the 4, which is bigger? The 4, so I wouldn't do anything. And then, so next would happen, and last position now would not be this spot, but I'd move the last position back 1 more, so I'm counting backwards, and the last position is going to be the 3rd spot. So I just need to check 1 and 2, which is bigger, 2 and 3, which is bigger, neither, so I swap. So now the last position's here, the last time I do it, and then we're done. So pretty easy. That's how a sort routine works. That's the simplest sort. It's not the fastest, but it's the simplest sort. So one last thing that students often have issues with is the swap. Now there's a big flaw in the swap. Let's take a look at the code for the swap. So here was my loops. Last position was going to be the last spot to 1 step -1, or the last spot -1 rather. And position is going to be, the inner loop is going to be from 1 to there. But my problem was, if the position I'm looking at is bigger I want to swap. How do I swap? What do I do for swap? And what a lot of students would do is this. They would put this code here in. So for their swap, they would say the array at position is equal to the array at position plus 1. So those two are switched. And then they would say array at position plus 1 is equal to the array. But the problem is, suppose the array at position was 5 and the array at position plus 1 is 3. Sorry, backwards. Suppose that was a 3 and that was a 5. What would happen is position plus 1 now would be the same. So it would we'd sort of erase what the old position was. So what we need to do is we need to say in here, we need to add a line. And I would say temp is equal to my array position. So the temporarily, we'd hold what the position was. And then when we change the position to be what was in the one ahead of it, I then say position plus 1 is equal to the temp, because that's what the old one was. Okay, and so that's what I would need to code for the swap. And that's it. That's basically the idea in the code for creating a simple sort. And so as you can see, I can quickly go through it. We had our array 1, 5, 3, 2, 4, and we just simply go through it and keep going back and forth and get smaller and smaller until we're done.